Big part of the tikkun that we need to do is not in theory, rather in action. And a big tikkun that we need to do as an individual is what we spoke about in the morning about tikkun habrit. We will have to make a lot of classes about it, that it will be more clear what exactly the damage does, how severe it is. Many people ask, where is the source in the Torah? The source is with the sons of Yehuda, and Onan, that the whole story with Tamar. We'll do a whole class about that, with the sources of it. Today I don't want to talk about the sources of severity, I more want to talk about the tikkun, because there are many parts that we need to do. So last week we learned about tikkun memchet in the Zohar, 48. We read a little bit what the Arizal has to say, which I think is enough for any bar da'at, any person that their mind is clear, to understand that the 7.5 minutes it takes to read the tikkun is more important than watching Facebook for 3.5 hours and wasting your time. But another big thing that is important, that's what we're going to focus on today a little bit, is that we say now every day before Mincha Tikkun Haklali, and there's a lot what to learn about Tikkun Haklali, but a lot of people don't see the power and the importance of reading Tikkun Haklali. People think, oh, maybe I need to be a Breslever to read Tikkun Haklali. And even ladies, women say, well, this is not for me, it's for men. It's also for women. And achidami, it's for everybody. That's why it's called klali. Klali means general. Even though it's general, but we do know that the tikkun is mainly designed by Rabbi Nachman from Breslev for tikkun habrit. And I quickly want to go through some of the great tzaddikim that they endorse it. Because many people not necessarily hold by it, or they say, what's the difference between this and any type of Tehillim? Why can't I just read regular Tehillim? The magic power of Tehillim, that if you read it all in one shot, all 150 chapters, that will be one type of power. But there are combinations in Tehillim that we know that are called tikkunim. One of the most famous ones is when we read Pesukei de Zimra every morning. The rabbis, the heads, the leaders of the Great Assembly, Anshe Knesset Agdola, all were men with Ruach HaKodesh, each one in a different level, and they chose which chapters of Tehillim have to go in which order to open a spiritual safe in the world above. I call it a spiritual safe because you need a certain code to open a spiritual safe. Like Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to get forgiveness from Hashem. It took him 40 days to figure it out. He went through the archives of the godly library, and after 40 days he figured out that if he mentions 13 attributes of mercy, he opens the vault of Rachamim. Hashem Hashem, kel rachum v'chanun echapay v'av chesed v'emet, yotzer chesed l'alafim nose avon v'pesha v'chata v'nakeh, boom! Hit the jackpot. Took him 40 days to figure that out. But the second that he figured that out, a combination of 13 letters, then it opened the vault of mercy. So Anshe Knesset Agdola, the men, the rabbis of the Great Assembly, also figured out a few of these vaults. And one of them is what we read in Shacharit. If you ever wondered, why do we say specifically these Psalms of Tehillim? From 150, why these? And in the order. And some of them we don't say the whole verse, the whole chapter. We cut it, we add on it. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha. It's a combination of 2 chapters of Tehillim. So the same idea that the Tehillim in Shacharit and many others in Tikkun Leil Shavuot, for example, we just celebrated the holiday of Shavuot. We read here Tikkun Leil Shavuot. How come specifically we read only a few of the Tehillim, chapters of Tehillim? But again, whoever compiled it in a holy, divine inspiration, Ruach HaKodesh, knew that this specific combination of Tehillim, they create a certain tikkun, a certain rectification, change something in the spiritual realm. And this is kind of equivalent to chemistry. You take a few different chemicals, you mix them together, it will do a certain reaction. This can be the same with biology, and it can be the same with cooking. You mix all sorts of things together. Even on your daily basis, you make coffee. You put a lot of sugar, it will be sweet. Put less sugar, it will be bitter. Put a lot of coffee, it will be strong. So everything in life is the quantities and the amounts you mix, what will be the result. So it happened to be that Rabbi Nachman from Breslev, in his great level of Kedusha, reached to the understanding that these 10 chapters of Tehillim, read together, penetrate to such a deep place in the spiritual realm or in the depth of the neshama, to do specifically the correction, the tikkun for Pgam Brit. Like I said so many times, we will do many more classes in the next 32 days and on about this Pgam, because unfortunately, almost not one person is free from this damage. Men, women, young, old, it's one of the most severest damages, and it affects the neshama in such a profound way that most people are affected terribly because of this. I told you already that Avraham Avinu and Kadosh Baruch Hu made a deal. It's called Brit Ben HaBetarim, the covenant that when they passed through, they took an animal, cut it in half and passed through. There was a whole discussion there. One of the discussions was the sins that are called kretot. A sin that if chas v'shalom a person does, v'nichreta ha-nefesh ha'im me'amea. The nefesh, the lowest part of all 5 levels of the soul, gets cut off. And we literally just last week read about some of the kretot. Usually, most of the kretot, they don't really relate to us. Doing a seance, eating from the kodashim when you're impure, going into kodesh kodashim, things like this. It's nothing to do with us. But a lot of them do pertain to us. Yom Kippur, eating and working on Yom Kippur, desecrating Shabbat, eating chametz on Pesach. And there are 36 of these sins. 2 are positive, and 34 are negative. The 34 that are negative, like I told you, half of them has nothing to do with us, but nevertheless, the ones that do have to do with us, we have to be very careful with them. The positive ones is the sacrifice of Pesach, which also we don't have this option right now. And the next one is Brit Milah, circumcision, which is the Shmirat HaBrit, guarding the Brit. Not only the actual act of cutting the foreskin. So Avraham Avinu begged the Kadosh Baruch Hu, after seeing the damage, that he should leave some room for tshuva. Because Avraham Avinu saw that if chas v'shalom a person transgress one of these sins, the damage to the nefesh is so severe that it's almost irreversible. To a point that the Zohar even says it's almost, if not impossible, to do tshuva for these sins. And when the Zohar says it's impossible to do tshuva for Pgam Brit, it's talking about tshuva tata'ah, a lower level tshuva. But if a person reaches tshuva ila'ah, a high level tshuva, then he can do a tikkun for Pgam Brit. Avraham Avinu saw that the damage goes so deep that it damages all the sfirot, all the connection between me and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the negotiation in this deal of Avraham Avinu is, he told Hashem, take 9 sfirot, but leave me 1 sfira. The sfira of Keter, that the person will have some type of a root. It's almost like cutting hair or cutting a tree or something, but leave the roots. Why? So from that can be done tshuva. And you see an interesting connection that the word Keter, which is a crown, the highest of all sfirot, is the same letters of the punishment of Karet, which is the same letters, Kaf, Reish, Taf, the numerical value of 620, corresponding to the 620 mitzvot that we have in the Torah. So the damage is so severe that most people don't even fathom how severe it is. Now what we need to do is we need to understand it in three levels. First of all, the severity. The second one is how to prevent. And the third is how to fix. If you don't have all 3, there's going to be another problem. First, we're going to talk in many different classes, the severity. We'll go in depth, the severity, what the Zohar says. Most people can't really handle it. And what the Talmud says, and many other great sages. Then, what we're really going to need to focus on is how to prevent. the actions that I need to do to prevent it. And then, of course, comes the tikkun. And if I don't do any prevention and I don't understand the severity, the tikkun will be worthless. But nevertheless, we do know, based on the teachings of our sages, even if you do something and you don't understand and you don't have the right intention and you don't really know what you're doing, this is defined as lo lishma. You don't know you're doing it for the sake of the action. But our sages teach us, mitoch shelo lishma yavo lishma. By doing something in a very regular way, like a clock, so if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, eventually you'll do it for the right reasons. So there's no time to wait. When there's a leak, before the plumber can come, you still put towels on the floor, you still put a bucket to hold the water, you do whatever you can. The right way is to go to the main valve and to close it. And then you close the leak, but you still have a mess on the floor. So either way, you're not just sitting in there waiting for the plumber to come, start fixing. So without asking, without knowing, we do whatever we can. And that's one of the many reasons why every day, a man, a woman should read Tikkun Haklali. Doesn't matter if you understand it right now. Doesn't matter if you know what the meaning is. Doesn't matter even if you understand the words or not. It's irrelevant. And for the questions you were asking before, of course it's better to read it in Hebrew. And if you don't know, then learn Hebrew. And if you don't know, then practice on it. Learn one chapter, and next week another chapter, and next week another chapter, till you learn to say it in Hebrew, because the power in Hebrew is 1,000 times more. But if you don't know, so read it in English. Or you can maybe we should look online, maybe there's a transliteration. I'm sure there's a transliteration. You have it? See? Yeah? So you read it in the transliteration. It will take you another 10 minutes because you have to pronounce the words. But the pronunciations of the words in Lashon Kodesh, you can compare it to saying it in English or any other language. Saying English because we speak English, but there's Tikkun Haklali in dozens of languages, which is translated. But to say it in Hebrew, needless to say, the power is greatest than all. I want to go through some interesting information, an endorsement one can say, because if you now hear the word Rabbi Nachman from Breslev, you're saying the big tzaddik. People in thousands go to the Ukraine to go to the grave. Don't have to tell you what's going on in Oman, and this is a big movement. Go 200 years ago and he would say the word Rabbi Nachman from Breslev, people would spit on the floor. He was embarrassed, he was mocked, he was hated, everybody went against him. He wasn't such a big shot at the time when he was alive. And this is usually the case with all the tzaddikim. The Baal Shem Tov was also not a big star. Everybody didn't like him. And this is with almost every tzaddik in his generation while he's alive, he was not a big star. After he dies, then people realize how great he was. And this is also happened here in Tzfat with the Arizal. Nobody really liked him. There was a city of great sages, great Mekubalim, and this comes this little teenager. He wasn't a teenager, but he was 34 years old when he came here. He looked like a little kid. You can imagine him coming to the Al-Sheikh and the Abuav and Yosef Karo and the Meterani and all these huge giants. Even the Ramak was here, and the Ramak was very young. Suddenly this young guy comes, and he wasn't so popular either, by the way. They only figured out who they had here after he died. And he himself said that besides his student Rabbi Chaim Vital, nobody in the generation is worthy to his Torah, and he packed his bags and he left. Spiritually, of course. So Rabbi Nachman wasn't so great in his time. I mean, he wasn't recognized. Later on came many other great tzaddikim and saw his work and his teaching and endorsed him. I want to read quickly because it makes a big impression when you hear many great tzaddikim, what they have to say about Tikkun Haklali. So the first one, this is close to our heart because there's a great tzaddik, Rav Tzaddik Hagon, the great tzaddik, the genius, Rabbi Shmuel Heller. Rabbi Shmuel Heller was the Av Beit Din of Tzfat. Maybe you know, maybe you heard, but he was a great tzaddik. And he says as follows, he said that he got firsthand. Kabbalah is not only the teachings of Kabbalah. Kabbalah means that it was passed along from one rabbi to another rabbi to another rabbi. It's called the Kabbalah. Mirabotav, he received this of his rabbis. שהאומר העשרה מזמורים הללו שגילה רבי נחמן from Breslev, any person that says these 10 chapters of Tehillim that Rabbi Nachman from Breslev gave us, נחשב בשמיים, it's considered in the heavens, כאילו אמר וסיים כל ספר תהילים. Like as if you read the entire book of Tehillim. So you read 10 chapters and it's like as if you did 150 chapters. And I don't have to tell you the power of reading a whole book of Tehillim. This is very, very powerful to read a whole book of Tehillim. It's even highly recommended in times like Yom Kippur and many others when you don't have anything else to do, is to read 2 books of Tehillim. Because there's 150 chapters in one book. Two books is 300 chapters. Gives you the gematria of the word kaper, atone. So it's powerful to read on Yom Kippur 2 books of Tehillim. And it's doable because you have nothing else to do anyways. So here he says you read the 10 chapters of Tehillim, it's like as if you read the whole book of Tehillim. Another one, Rabbi Akadosh Baruch Pinchas Miskalia. This is the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. A lot of the names you might not recognize, but it's not so important. And he says also, Yomar na Yisrael et ha'asara pirkei Tehillim shegilah Rabbi Nachman. Every Jew and Jewette, a Jewish woman, should say these 10 chapters. Why? Betach yivashe'un bechol mishalot libam letova. Everything that their heart desires, if it's something good, not desires to be famous and to have a 500 SL Mercedes. I'm talking about something positive, then no doubt that they're going to be granted that. Ve'yinatzlu mikol tzara, and they will be saved from any tzara, from any problem. Bli safek betoch klal Yisrael. But no doubt, if a person says it with all his heart, with all his intention. This is the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. Another great endorsement is from the Gaon HaTzadik, Rabbi Elazar Papo. Rabbi Elazar Papo is the grandson of the Pele Yoetz. If the original Rabbi Papo is the Pele Yoetz. This is a book that a long time I wanted to start teach. This book is an unbelievable book with great teachings. But anyways, Rabbi Elazar is the grandson of Rabbi Papo from the Pele Yoetz. And he says, a person who says these 10 chapters, En lo pachad al avon, you can remove any fear from that sin. Ki bevadai gamur nitaken avono. For no doubt the sin was corrected. A person that is a Yarei Shamayim, a God-fearing person, Ba'al Nefesh, what it's called, that is concerned about his soul, is concerned. What's going to happen when I die? This is a normal person. Not normal persons don't care. A smart person cares. What's going to be with me when I die? I don't know what's waiting for me there. I don't know who's waiting, what I did, what records they're going to show me. This is a smart way of living. Not living in fear, but living, like a person in this world creates a fund for his retirement. The right smart person creates also spiritual fund to the world to come. So a smart person, when realizes the severity of his sin, is uncomfortable with the fact that there's a sin there. So Rabbi Elazar from Papo says, if you read it every day, don't worry, you have nothing to worry about the sin. Most likely the sin was corrected and rectified. You have nothing to worry about. Another great endorsement from the great Mekubal, Rabbi Chaim Palaji. He's a great Mekubal. We commented a lot of his teachings many times. And he says, unfortunately, he calls the Pugam Abrit, Pugam HaKeri, the damage of Keri. Keri is sperm or semen. And he says the tikkun for that is reading the 10 chapters of Tikkun Haklali, Vehu tikkun gadol meod. It's a great tikkun, a rectification. And the person who reads these 10 chapters, en lo lefached od me'apgam hanora. You have nothing to worry about this horrible sin. Ki bevadai nitaken al yedei amirat Tehillim. For sure, there's going to be a tikkun, a rectification from reading these 10 Tehillim. This is Rabbi Chaim Palaji. Next, Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum. You know who Yoel Teitelbaum is, the founder of the movement of Satmar. And he says also, Mi she'omer asara mizmurim elu, a person that says these 10 chapters, mamtik me'alav kol adinim kashim, sweeten all bad and horrible negative judgments. Now these, just to understand, each and one of these people that I'm reading, these are tzaddikim, great righteous men, that their words are solid in the world above. If a A certain individual like this, by the way, the Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum is the great Satmar Rebbe. I mean, the level of Ruach HaKodesh and Kedusha that he has is unfathomable. And he says in a book called Shivcho Shel Tzadik, that you remove all the dinim and sweeten them. וציווה שידפיסו את 10 מזמורים, and he commanded or ordered to print these booklets and to spread them all over the place, and he paid from his own money for the printing of this book. That's how much he was endorsing it. Another great endorsement comes from the Rebbe from Tzanz. I don't know if I told you this story. The Rebbe from Tzanz passed away. Around now the Rebbe from Tzanz that they have is how do you say, processor? Successor, the next one. So the famous Rebbe from Tzanz had such a Ruach HaKodesh that sometime somebody came to him and presented an issue, a problem. So I don't know, I'm sure you're all familiar, when you go here to the mikveh of Tzanz, they have 2 mikvehs. One is the boiling hot water, like a chicken soup, and the other one is a freezing ice cold mikveh. So many people like the hot one, but the one next to it is freezing cold. Okay, so this guy comes to the Rebbe from Tzanz and tells him, I have an issue. No, sorry. He came to him and asked for a bracha. The Rebbe from Tzanz told him, I can't give you a bracha. He answers, why? He says, because you didn't go to the mikveh. So he tells, I have a problem with the mikveh. So he says, why do you have a problem with the mikveh? He says, because every time that I go there, an old man stands there and he's staring at me. I just feel uncomfortable going in. So the Rebbe from Tzanz tells him, oh, so you saw Eliyahu. So just if you can't make it to the mikveh of the Ari, go to the mikveh of Tzanz. Apparently Eliyahu Navi is standing there and staring down to see if you're really going all the way and there's no chatzitza separation in your nails and you took a shower. So this is the Rebbe from Tzanz. He says, Yehudi shezoche lomar elu hamizmorim, a Jew that has the merit to read these chapters, karaui, but you have to read it well. Bekocham, they have the power, lishbor mechitzot shel barzel. They have the power to demolish and break completely any barriers of concrete, he's saying iron, barzel, but I add on it concrete, steel, and barzel is iron, but nevertheless, the message is what's important, that it can break any mechitza. What will bring this barrier is me sinning, of course. Next is Rabbi Alon Anava. I'm sure you heard about Rabbi Alon Anava. He has a famous book, Shomer Emunim, and many other great teachings, a Breit Mekubal. And he says this is the tikkun for Keri, for this horrible sin. Ve'ashrei hazoche la'asotam. Happy is the one who is married to read these Tehillim. She'amar shegilu lo min hashamayim sheze tikkun lo tochet. He says on himself that he was revealed from the heavens that this 10 chapters is a tikkun specifically for Avon HaBrit. It looked like I'm telling you each one here is a pillar of a tzaddik in the last few hundred years. Next is the Gaon Baal Yitav Lev. This is the son of Kedushat Yom Tov, another great tzaddik. And he says, Haomer asara prakim elo shel tzaddik, en tzarich lefachad. You say it in the merit, in the idea to do Tikkun HaBrit, you have nothing to worry about. This will stand to you as a huge merit. And the last one, HaGaon HaKadosh, the great holy man, Rabbi Chaim Sinvani, he says, if you are very particular, hanizhar lomar et hatikun, you're very particular, meaning that you say it every day, and meaning that you say it in the right pace, not zooming through it or reading it with your eyes, saying it and moving your lips and pronouncing the words. He says, Tikkun atzum, this is unbelievable tikkun. And he says, Ufuk chaze iman chatim aleh tikkun zeh. Go and see who signed this tikkun, meaning Rabbi Nachman from Breslev. Vehu nitarev bezeh tikkun, and he is involved in this tikkun. Ve'im yomram ashrei lo, and if you say that, happy is the one who says that. Why? Because this is a great tikkun for the horrible sin. And this is some of the great tzaddikim that endorse it. So it's just important for us to understand what it means to say that. You saw yesterday when we took the time, 8 minutes it took. If you read it not fast, I mean, okay, maybe my Hebrew is a little bit more polished than some other people. So if it took me 8 minutes, it should take you 12 minutes, 15 minutes. It's what an average person will spend on nonsense. How much junk you watch a day on social media and YouTube and all the rest of the junk. You add here 5 minutes, here 5 minutes, here 5 minutes. Say that instead. But you have to say it every day. You have to say it with the right intention. You have to say it with tchina and bakasha, saying to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, okay, I don't know much, I'm this big, but at least accept my prayers, what I say. And this is a huge thing that one should incorporate every day. So we do it before Mincha. Some people do it right after Shacharit. Some people, they do it after Mincha. Everybody does it when they can. Better to say it during the day, not to say it at night. If there's no other options, you do it at night too. And of course, you want to say the 10 together, not 3 and then a stop and then 2 and then a stop. You want to say all the 10 together. And highly recommended when you start, don't talk in between. Because you want to say it in one shot, that it will be one long chapter, as if one long chapter, not like saying 1 or 2, talking and then breaking the connection and the chain. Say it in one shot. I can tell you that me and thousands of other people saw great yeshuot, great salvation from this little composition of one of the greatest tzaddikim we had in our history. I highly, highly recommend to do it with all your heart every day. And needless to say, what a great tikkun it would reach to do, because we really have to focus on that. If a person is not able to fix this specific sin, the majority of his spiritual work will not be able to really be elevated to the world above, because this is a severe sin. And there are many other sins that we're going to talk about, but this is one of the biggest ones, especially that we all have a fair share. So highly recommended to do whatever we can. There's not much time. We don't know what's waiting for us tomorrow. You got to live in a positive way, of course, that today is my last day. How do I live my day if this would be my last day? Highly recommended. Take it on yourself. It's not long. Even though your Hebrew might not be so smooth, do it. You do it a month or two, you'll see it will come faster. You'll be able to memorize the words better. You'll be able to pronounce the words. Better to do it slow in the beginning. If you can't read the Hebrew, do 1 chapter transliteration and then the other 9 read in English. Slowly, work on it. This is an investment. This is not something that you do to pass time. And at some point you want to get that you read it in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, and you understand what you're saying. We can do some classes that we dissect the actual words and the Tehillim, what it means behind it. But now we're doing it blindly, no questions, no explanations. You just do it for the sake of doing it. And B'ezrat Hashem, Yehi Morah Shamayim Alechem, the fear of God will be on us and assist us to do a tikkun. And needless to say, when I do tikkun for myself, at some universal way, it's doing a tikkun for the entire world. Because I'm part of one big system. So if I'm elevating myself, by default, many will be elevated with me, especially my wife and kids. B'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should bless us, so we should all have the merit to leave this world with a great tikkun, that we don't have to come back here and ever again. And even more important, that we should do our tikkun before Mashiach comes, that we will be able to do what we read every time, 3 times a day. This we're going to start learning next week, B'ezrat Hashem. What does that mean and how we do that? But for now, we're doing it blindly, Kabbalah all, no questions. We read. B'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should bestow on us His mercy and love, so we will be able to reach this amazing rectification.